Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Texas Rangers franchise here on MLB The Show 21 and the MSM Sports Network. The Texas Rangers have reached draft day here in 2023, our third draft in the franchise series, and we've had two pretty solid years at drafting. Last year, because we were farther down the order, the higher-end talent certainly wasn't available, but I think we still did a fairly decent job. This year, what I've done is I've actually overhauled my scouting approach, and I've, in fact, done a lot of the scouting myself. Normally, that's not what I do when it comes to scouting. I usually turn that to auto and kind of treat that as my scouting department. Say that they're going to handle that, and I'm going to take their word for it when it comes to talent evaluation. But as you continue to rebuild your team, the CPU scouting isn't very good at all at finding those value plays. They get the blue chip prospects, obviously, but they don't really get anything else. And I felt like that bit us a little bit last year. So what I've done is I've gone in and scouted a lot of guys manually myself. As you get a look at our current position rankings based on the 30 MLB teams. And again, this is the MLB teams. This is not the organizational depth. In fact, I'm going to show you in just a little bit the organizational depth that I've researched at every single level for every single major league team. Essentially, what I'm going to show you is a breakdown of the top prospects and give you the top 12 teams as far as my minor league power rankings go. I think that's going to be a ton of fun, and we'll add a little bit of depth to this series that I've never seen anywhere else. So stay tuned towards the end of the episode. After the draft, I'll be unveiling my post-draft rankings on where I believe the top prospects reside. I'll show you the top 50 prospect list as well. But before we get to all of that, we first have to get through the 2023 draft, and we're drafting 21st this year. Of course, the Rangers, American League West champs, and as such, you're obviously not going to be at the top end of the spectrum. However, there are a number of really solid players that I believe we can get as we progress down the draft, and one of them is Malcolm Reyes. Malcolm Reyes reminds me a lot of Marcus Stroman of the New York Mets, and in fact, I think he even has a very similar pitching style to Stroman. I'm hoping that Reyes falls to us, a hard-throwing right-hander from the state of Michigan. He was the ace for the Nebraska Cornhuskers and led a resurging Cornhuskers team nearly all the way back to Omaha. They hosted a super regional but were defeated in the supers by Cal State Fullerton, and so Reyes not able to lead his team to the promised land in his senior season. But Reyes has a very hard fastball. He's got good break. That walks per nine, I think, makes him elite. I really do hope that he's a guy that can maybe fall to us. He's not a blue chip prospect, and so as such, I think there's a chance that he could make it to us, but not totally sure about that. Other value plays when it comes to starting pitching, I think Martin Olivia, the right-handed pitcher from the state of Oklahoma State University. I think basically he's kind of like a B-level version of what Reyes is. He doesn't throw as hard, and his upside isn't nearly as good, but I'd still be happy to get him with our first pick in this draft. The next position that I've really scouted, hoping that we can maybe really capitalize in our first round, is catcher. Now, we have two excellent catchers in our organization, in Randy Florentino, who is currently leading the All-Star race, and in Dan Porton, a first-round selection who we traded for a couple of seasons ago. Now, I do like what they're going to provide for us long-term, and I think they're both answers at the big league level, but I don't think that we can solely rely on them. I want to go and see if I can find another catcher, another guy that I can develop, hopefully to come behind them, and then, as one of them starts to age or is less effective, we have their natural replacement on the roster. Guys like Adrian Batista, Andrew Bush, and even Nolan Campaneris, I think are guys that fit that mold. Again, not super high ceiling guys, but they're young, and I think they have a lot of potential, and I would love to get one of these guys on our roster. The final position that I'm looking for in the first round is at third base. Now, ordinarily, when you look infield, you want to go shortstop first, but according to my scouting, this shortstop class is not very deep at all, and I truly expect these first few shortstops to go off the board rather quickly. I think Thomas Guthrie might be a guy that we consider if he falls to us down at our pick, but a guy that doesn't have a super high ceiling. He is only 20 years old, but I want a little bit more flash, I think, than maybe what Thomas would provide. Plus, he is a long-term project. Now, you look back at third base where I'm interested in guys, and there's two that jump off the page at me. One is Rob Benitez. Now, Benitez is more of a pure hitter than Thomas Guthrie is, but he's not the same level of athlete. I think that Benitez has potential to be a very good major league hitter, but we might have to teach him a second position. Possibly first base, possibly at second base. I think it all depends on where his skill set truly ends up being. But I would not mind taking a corner infield guy to slot into our organization. The other player is from the state of Massachusetts, and that's Charlie Masters. Now, Charlie is a more MLB-ready prospect with a higher upside, but he's also older and has a high injury risk. I don't like that high injury risk, plus he's already 23 years old, and the MLB ETA, according to our scouts, is still 2027 plus. Charlie would be kind of my last resort first round pick, but not necessarily a guy that I'm looking to go and take as a surefire pick. Now, Wes Cairo would be another guy that I would consider taking. He can play literally every position in the infield but catcher, but he is a blue chipper, and so I'm not really expecting him to fall to us. So without any further ado, let's get into the 2023 first-year player draft, our third draft in this franchise. And you see at the top a couple of National League contenders that are perennial contenders anyway for that first overall pick. The Pirates, the Diamondbacks, you got the Phillies, who are uncharacteristically towards the bottom. But then you've also got teams like the Blue Jays and the Tigers who have just poached top prospect after top prospect. And you're going to see that, especially with the Pirates and the Blue Jays. Spoiler alert, they're both on my top 12 list. They have incredible farm systems, and they're only going to get better. The Rays, who have one of the top farm systems in all of baseball, are slotted in at number 10. Same with the Royals. They're in there at number 11. Now, I misspoke earlier. I said we drafted 21st. We drafted 26th. 5 teams from the bottom, but you know what? That's the price of winning in Major League Baseball. The best teams like the Dodgers, the Red Sox, now apparently the Padres and the Yankees, they learn to get the most out of these draft selections with the research that they do, and that's our mission here in 2023. Will we simulate forward to our pick? Adam Lima is a starting pitcher I didn't show you because I knew he would go very, very early. He goes number 1 overall. Lima goes to the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I think he might potentially have the highest upside out of any pitcher. I really liked Lima's scouting. We'll show you him in the post edit. Wes Cairo, that shortstop I was talking about, he goes 5th overall to the Phillies. And then you have guys like Steve Otto, who's the top second baseman in the class. He goes to the Rockies. Starting pitchers like Martin Olivia. I'm surprised he went as early as he did. He goes to the Kansas City Royals. Of course, if you follow me on Twitter, you know I tweeted about this guy. Morris goes to the Cincinnati Reds. What a name for a relief pitcher. He's going to the Queen City. And then you saw a couple of the catchers go. Peter Arabu goes. Fred Clifford was the first catcher off the list, the top college catcher in the class. A couple of high school, or I should say JUCO catchers go in Lucius Malaska and Hank Mize. But there is one name that's on this list, or not on the list, I should say, who's on my list, and that is starting pitcher Malcolm Reyes. I mentioned that Reyes had, I think, a very, very high ceiling and certainly profiles to be close to a guy like Marcus Stroman. With the guys off the board that have already been taken, the draft selection was clear for me, and with the 26th pick in the 2023 MLB draft, the Texas Rangers will select Malcolm Reyes, right-handed starting pitcher from the University of Nebraska. Simulating forward now into the second round, and just want to show you some of the guys that went right after us. The Padres took Mariano Santiago, another good starting pitcher, and then a first baseman and a couple of relief pitchers went at the end of that round. Here are the competitive balance round pick. Jarvis Chase was a third baseman that we were scouting late. I don't think that he's going to be anything special, but I hadn't fully scouted him, so we'll see. Andrew Bush was that catcher that I was kind of hoping would fall to us. He goes to the Reds in the competitive balance pick. And then here are the list of the second round picks. There goes Thomas Guthrie to the Colorado Rockies. Very solid selection here. We keep looking down. Robert Upchurch was a guy I had scouted, but wasn't too crazy on. And so that leaves us with a couple of guys that we had still scouted, including 18-year-old second baseman Tom Chung. Now, Chung, according to our scouts, is fully scouted. An international prospect who will be ready in just 2 years' time. He's an 18-year-old, 6'4" from the nation of Taiwan. He came over to play high school in the United States, another IMG Academy product, and Tom Chung really certainly caught my attention here. But the other options that we had were kind of slim, but I do have to say that my third baseman prospects were on the list. Rob Benitez, still waiting to be picked, as well as Charlie Masters. I do like both of them to have inside our organization to develop, but at the end of the day, it was going to be impossible to pass on a guy like Tom Chung, and he would be our second round selection. Of course, as is true to form, as soon as we make our pick, which I'm in love with our pick in Tom Chung, another guy that I'm looking at, Charlie Masters, goes off the list. I believe that Rob Benitez was chosen as well in the third round, and he was by the Detroit Tigers. I think they're getting a very, very good developmental prospect. It's going to take a good amount of time for him to be ready, but I certainly do like the direction that they're going. Now, at this point, it is all about guessing. You're just going for upside. As you can see, the scouted players that I had are basically all off the board. Robbie Chamberlain is a second baseman prospect who we had scouted. A nice little goatee, but nothing really special in terms of, I think, what we're going to get out of him in the next organizational level. So at this point, I think we're just going to throw some darts here and see what sticks. Unfortunately, the next area that I would have thrown a dart at was at catcher, but you know, with these potentials, even though they're not fully scouted, I don't really know that it's worth throwing a dart. Maybe Will Joyce, we'll see, but I don't think he's necessarily the pick here. I'm going to root around for just a little bit, and we'll see who we end up taking with our third round selection. Well, in the spirit of throwing darts, I think we're going to go with a first baseman prospect in our third round here. Fernando Asensio is a first base prospect who doesn't have a secondary position, but might be able to play in the outfield. I think we could probably assign him a left field role. He's a decent athlete, not overly fast, but supposedly he's going to have a decent glove and a decent arm. And the hitting stats from, again, no research done basically on him, says that he's going to be a very good hitter. What I'm going to go with is the MLB ETA of 2024. I'd love to have a big bat in the lineup, and even though he's only 20 years old, if we think that he could maybe contribute, that'd be great. I think we're going to end up moving a couple of our depth first basemen here at the trade deadline, so we'll take Fernando Asensio with our third round pick. We reach the fourth round, and the selection is easy. Again, there's no one that I have scouted at this point, as everyone that I had scouted got taken very, very early. So we're going to take a catcher here, Will Joyce. His potential is just 65 projected, a long, long way away. But, you know, at this point, let's go ahead. Let's throw a dart. Let's take Will Joyce and see what we get out of it. To the fifth round we go, and obviously the picks are getting slim. At this point, I think we're just going to take starting pitching and see what comes of that. Thomas Valenzuela is a guy who has a 5-pitch mix. I love the potential here. Again, no idea anything on his accuracy, but we're going to take Valenzuela with our 5th round pick, and then simulating forward to the 6th round, our final pick in this year's draft. There's only a couple guys on the board. We're going to take the guy with the nearest MLB ETA and highest overall, Darius Smart, a left-handed relief pitcher from the state of Texas, will be the final draft pick for your Texas Rangers. And there you go. Our third draft is in the books. Cannot wait to see who we got. We take a look at our draft picks, and ladies and gentlemen, we hit a home run this year. Malcolm Reyes, your first selection with the 26th overall pick in the MLB draft. And Reyes is a 67 overall with 88 potential, high velocity, already very average walk per 9 and strikeout ratings. And that's only going to go up. And by the way, he's got a mean breaking ball with that slider. I think the changeup's going to dance as well. We got an absolute steal with our 26th pick. And then, oh, by the way, Tom Chung is a 63 overall with 90 potential. The 18-year-old somehow fell to us at the end of the second round, and we've hit this one out of the park. A fantastic hitter, not going to hit for much power initially, but he's a great bat. He's not going to strike out a lot. In fact, the only downside to his game is that he's just not that great of a fielder at this point, but he'll develop. I think we stick him at AA starting in next year and let him get those reps. I think Tom Chung is going to be a fantastic player. How about Fernando Ascension? We completely guessed on him, and we get a 71 overall, extremely talented bat. Again, he's not going to be a Gold Glove caliber defender yet, but the bat is exceptional. Above average contact and power. I think we'll be able to teach him a secondary skill to play in left field potentially. He's got the size. He is a prototypical first baseman power hitter. I'm really, really excited about that. Now, Will Joyce, we did not hit on, nor did we hit on Darius Smart, but tell you what, Joyce is a 72 overall, so his potential is lower than his actual overall, but tell you what, he's a great defender behind the plate, got a good enough arm to throw base runners out, and I think he can hold his own at the plate. So is he a home run pick by any means? No, but at the same time, I think we get a lot of value there out of a late fourth round pick. Thomas Valenzuela, though, 60 overall. He is 23 years old, so he is a little bit older. The K per 9, not very good, but look at the walk rating. 75 overall, and the velocity and the break are outstanding. Valenzuela is a steal in the fifth round. And then our final pick, Darius Smart, 68 potential, 60 overall right now. He throws the ball very hard, and actually is not going to walk too many hitters either. Overall, this might be our best draft ever. I know that we got Hank Lyons in the first draft. We also got Ben Espinoza, guys who are going to be cornerstones in this series, But at the same time, getting guys like Malcolm Reyes, Tom Chung, Fernando Ascension, and then Thomas Valenzuela, I mean, we are set for years to come. And there are guys like Reyes and Ascension that I think you could see at the AAA level even as soon as next season. I think all these guys start in AA, but there's a serious potential that they break through that ceiling and make it to Round Rock sooner rather than later. Well, as I promised earlier in the episode, I did a breakdown of all 30 Major League farm systems, and I'm going to show you the top 12, mostly because I thought those were the 12 that separated themselves. And I'll throw that graphic up on the scoreboard in a moment. But first, I wanted to show you the top 50 prospects as a whole. And I'm going to talk about a lot of these guys in depth as we go through the 12 teams that I've identified. You see guys on the list like Morris Cash, who's now number 23, Nick Lodolo, who is a very talented pitcher from TCU, on and on it goes. Most notably for us, the Rangers have 4 guys in the top 50, including Maximo Acosta, who's now snuck onto that list at number 47. But I'll go ahead and throw that list on the board right now, and you see my list from 1 to 12, starting with the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, the Rays are the no doubt number one franchise as far as farm systems go. They have 4 of the top 20 and 7 in the top 50. J.J. Goss, a former Texas A&M commit, leads this list. Interesting story about Goss. His junior year of high school, he did not throw exceptionally hard. Low 90s, 91, 92 maybe, which for a right-handed pitcher really isn't anything special. But from his junior to his senior year, he really jumped in velocity. He put on some weight in the weight room, got up to about 96, 97, and then threw a no-hitter during summer ball, and that all but sealed his fate as going to the major league system. You see other pitchers like Nick Bitsko and then third baseman Luis Toribio for the Rays as well. They are absolutely loaded and no doubt the first team on this list. Number 2 is Kansas City. They've got Bobby Witt Jr., who is a number 99 overall. He's the 7th ranked prospect, according to MLB The Show 21. They've also got Scott Juarez, who they selected back in the 2021 draft. He is stinking talented. He's actually not listed in the top 50. They only have 2 in the top 50, including Eric Pena, but Juarez has 97 potential. He's loaded as well. Now, the New York Mets are number 3 on the list, and they have the top prospect in all of baseball, starting pitcher Matthew Allen. Matthew is a 76 overall, and he's still stuck at AAA where he's doing filthy things. 4-1, a 2.41 ERA. The Mets are going to be calling him up very, very shortly, which brings us to the Toronto Blue Jays at 4. Now, they've got 3 top prospects in the top 34, and a lot of that falls to pitching talent. The Blue Jays have Miguel Geraldo here at number 27, but you look at guys like Eric Pardinho and Adam Kloffenstein, very hard-throwing right-handers who I think are going to make a difference at the next level. Oh, by the way, Kloffenstein, he's 7 feet tall. You're not misreading that. Number 5 is your Texas Rangers. I mentioned we have 4 prospects in the top 50, and our top one being Blaine Inlow. 73 overall, a hard-throwing right-hander who we acquired from the Minnesota Twins. Do you remember who we traded him for? That's right, it was Chris Davis, as the Twins were in a playoff race. Davis didn't end up doing much for the Twins that year, and we get a top prospect who I think has a really good chance at cracking our rotation next season. Now, Robert Hassel, another one of our top prospects we got from the San Diego Padres in the Joey Gallo deal, off to a slow start this year at AA, but I expect him to pick it up, and I think he could make his MLB debut maybe as soon as next season. Now, the Seattle Mariners are at number 6, and this is where the top prospects might start falling off a little bit, but there is depth across the board at these levels, and the Mariners have 3 in the top 50. As you see, that's my note on them. They're just so solid, basically all throughout their organization. Their top prospect slots in at number 26. Noelvi Marte is a shortstop, a 20-year-old who is very, very promising. Now, the New York Yankees don't have the top-of-the-end starters across the board, but they do have this guy, Jason Dominguez, who is the number 2 overall prospect in all of baseball. The Rangers really hope to acquire him in real life from the New York Yankees, but did not get that deal done when they traded Joey Gallo to the Bronx. Instead, they took the quantity over quality, per se, approach. Boston Red Sox slot in at number 8. They've got Everson Pereira as their top prospect. Won't go too much into detail there, as they just weren't extremely impressive, but overall that organization is very, very deep. The Pittsburgh Pirates are at number 9, and they've got one of the best prospects I've ever seen in Eric Karros. 75 overall, 21 years old. He was selected just 2 years ago. This guy's ready to be at the big league level right now. That average isn't necessarily anything to love, but I think the power is going to be there, and he has an excellent glove. I mean, we are talking gold glove caliber defense over at the hot corner for the Pittsburgh Pirates, who also, by the way, had the number 1 overall prospect in Adam Lima selected this year. The St. Louis Cardinals, Houston Astros, and San Diego Padres are the rest of our top 12. I would say CJ Abrams is the top Padre prospect, and I think he might get traded. There's really nowhere for him to go unless maybe he slots in at second base, but I think the Padres could certainly dangle him at the trade deadline, and it'll be fascinating to see where exactly he goes. Now, I promised you I would show you the rest of the highlights from the draft, so let's start with who went in our division. I mentioned Peter Arabu as a potential catcher prospect. kind of glad we didn't get him. He's only a 53 overall and just 75 potential. Fred Clifford, though, is a very different story. Clifford is a great catcher, 22 years old. He's solid across the board. That glove, not as good as maybe you'd like for where he is in his career, but 93 potential. Antonio Varela goes to the Angels. They actually made a little bit more hay later on in the draft, getting Fernando Guerrero and Jonah Cortez. And then the Astros really kind of swung and missed. They got an 80 overall for their first round pick, but Mikey Holton is a 47 overall right now, and that's a long way to go in his developmental process. Looking across the board, and here are some of the other studs. The Tigers get Robert Castellano. He's a great starting pitcher, 22 years old, from the state of California. They also took Jarvis Chase and Rob Benitez, who I was right about, a developmental guy, but a really good ceiling on Benitez right now. Certainly no pop in the bat right now, but I think he could develop into something. He is only 20 years old. Moving on, Adrian Batista, one of the top catchers, goes to the White Sox. Josh Platt, a great left-handed pitcher, I should say, goes to the Blue Jays. And how about this? Chet Chan, a shortstop, 89 potential, goes in the final round of the draft. Robert Teleshaw, a relief pitcher, goes to the Yankees in the first round. That was really kind of all that they did in that draft. Peter Eastman, a first baseman, goes to the Baltimore Orioles as the Orioles continue to stack potential talent. But I tell you what, they're not in my top 12 standings. They've kind of dropped as they've had a ton of their former big-time prospects come up to the major league level. And Eastman being a 39 overall, I know he's only 18, but wow, that's a long way to go. Mariano Santiago, a starting pitcher we had looked at, goes to the Padres as they make a really good selection. And then the Colorado Rockies make the top selection in the draft according to the game. They take Steven Otto, 99 potential on this young second baseman. And tell you what, the Diamondbacks didn't do bad either. They took Luis Dominguez, a first baseman, 96 potential, who has a ton of upside. Now, here's the first overall pick, and I think this is a sensational pick for the Pirates. 68 overall, 95 potential for the 21-year-old right-hander out of Cuba. Great pick by the Pirates. As I listed them, they have the 9th-ranked farm system, and they're going up after this. Elsewhere, Wes Cairo, a shortstop I had talked about, he goes to the Phillies, and he went much earlier than I knew he would. I knew he wouldn't reach it to us. And Brian Montero, a outfielder, goes to the Marlins. Hank Mize, the final catcher that I really looked at, 86 potential, but a long, long way to go. Well, that will do it here for episode 38 in the franchise. How did you think we did in the draft? I thought that we did really well, but please leave your likes and feedback down in the comments. As always, we are growing this channel and so close to 100 subscribers. I would love to reach that little milestone and start building from there. I know that the content has been slowed down just a little bit, and I do apologize for that. Work has been absolutely crazy, and I've been working on some other projects as well. So hopefully on the weekends especially, I can really crank out content for you guys. But I did push extra hard to make sure that this draft episode went out during the week. So I hope you appreciate that. Hope you guys have enjoyed the journey. It has been so much fun getting to put this series together. I am absolutely stoked for what we have in store for the future of the organization. This series will continue, and we will also start Madden here in just a little bit. Until next time, so long, everybody.